Be happy.
Yes, I'd like to ask, what do you think about twins? Do they share the same soul?
Of course not. No, they have two souls.
They are different souls, right?
Yes, they are different souls, but my experience shows that these souls were undoubtedly together before. Definitely. It's not just that people are born together and live their whole lives in such close relationships. These relationships already existed before, at least every set of twins I've encountered. I can feel a person's past life. They definitely lived together before, whether in the previous life or one before that. Definitely. Do you have twins?
Yes.
They're of different genders, right?
No, boys.
Two boys?
2 boys.
Interesting. Well, they are a bit different. One resembles you and the other resembles their father. That's why I initially thought it was a boy and a girl.
Their names are Timofey and Semyon. They look alike. Thank you so much.
Well, Timothy's health is a bit weaker, so it's important.
Yes, you're absolutely right, yes.
You need to work with him. He doesn't have enough energy to live. He needs more physical activity. He's somewhat inactive, while Semyon moves a lot and replenishes his energy by himself. You know what the reason is? Because Timofey, he was lagging in development. That means that he wasn't positioned as well as the other boy. He needs movement now. You need to enroll him in some sports class. He needs to be energized. He's a bit like that.
He's more temperamental, and the other one, you can tell right away, is calmer.
He's calm because he was a bit worn out during the pregnancy, which is why he's calm. He needs to be energized a little, and he'll be fine too. He needs to be more active, help him to live, increasing physical activity in his life.
Thank you, and could you please advise? I'm reading a lot of literature about raising twins.
It's wrong to read too much literature. You need to read a bit, test it, and then read again.
They are only 5 months old, and I already feel...
You need to read, test it, and if you read too much without testing, you'll end up with a lot of doubts and a destructive understanding of things. That's not a good way to live, to read too much. You need to study, test, and reinforce because there are different worldviews, and when a person reads too much, they fill their mind with information. But life flows through the mind, and you need to fill the mind. And the mind isn't filled because the mind is filled through actions, through doing things. That's why you have so many doubts.
I do have doubts.
Because the process of absorbing material is wrong. You need to learn to act in life, not just dream and think. Your willpower is suffering. You also need to recover after childbirth. Certain stressful changes occurred in your body after childbirth, like impaired kidney function and issues with the uterus and so on. All of this can be changed through movement. If you leave it as it is, it will turn into chronic conditions. The saying goes, if you want to live, live. There's a proverb like that.
Thank you very much.
You must want to live because if a person is passive about their life, they don't achieve success. Well, this young lady here is passive about her life, the one in white. Yes, we'll talk to her now. Give the microphone to the lady in white.
Thank you very much.
No, not you. You're active. I'm talking about the one in the 3rd row. We'll talk to you too, don't worry, otherwise she'll get upset, and I won't be able to give the lecture.
Hello, my name is Yulia.
You've come out of depression, right?
No.
You weren't depressed?
I'm still in depression.
You haven't come out of it yet?
I just changed jobs, and I think that maybe it's a step higher than before because I had very difficult relationships in the family. I was married, we had a shared job. Also, we have a child together. She's 4 years old, a daughter. I believe that my ex-husband suffered from some mental disorders. He seems like a psychopath.
This is today's topic of discussion because you can always see that someone looks like a psychopath.
Well, I'm not a doctor, I can't speak about that.
But you yourself are not in a completely normal state either.
I agree. Yes, that's why I believe I still haven't.
And the reason is that you lived incorrectly. When people are closed off from others, have no friends or much social interaction, it's just work and home. That's it. They drain each other and then they start going crazy. That's the diagnosis, you see. It's an incorrect way of living. A person recharges from nature, from kind people, from God. You weren't recharging from anyone. That's it. Just with each other all the time, here and there, here and there. If a person eats the same honey, say, for 3 days straight, they'll start feeling sick from it. Now imagine a person, they're not honey, it's more than that. And you were locked onto each other. It reached the point of hysteria. It's clear that mental disturbances will happen because a person is not a closed system. They need to receive and give, receive and give. You weren't receiving and you still aren't. Now you're not living together, but you're constantly thinking about him. It's the same thing. You broke up, but he thinks about you and you think about him. Like in the song, such is love, such is misfortune, and when you're not here, you're always with me. What's your question to me?
My question is whether it's worth continuing communication with him, considering we have a child.
Where are you going to go from each other?
Unfortunately, nowhere.
From a submarine. You'll take a break and then torment each other again.
When will I come out of depression then?
That depends entirely on you. He has nothing to do with it. He can also come out of his state. You have depression, and he has overexcitement. He's all like this. It's your misunderstanding of how to live. It's not his fault, and it's not yours either. The child, by the way, constantly has colds, sniffles right now. That's also overexcitement. It's all because of the way you live. It's wrong. And many people here have a life like this. Not just those sitting here, but most people, because no one teaches us how to live. We're taught how to work, how to be successful, in quotes. A sick person can't be successful. That's the problem. You see, I tell everyone the same thing, and that's why we'll talk about it today in the lecture, because this is a real problem in our lives. When was the last time you went to the forest?
Basically 2 days ago. But it's kind of like a forest, in quotes.
My dear, I don't feel the energy of the forest on you. You were in the forest and thinking about your husband.
Because we were together.
You should be thinking about the forest when you're in the forest. That's the point. You need to recharge with the energy of life. Otherwise, there will be no life. You're drained. Depression happens because a person should believe in God, not in another person. You believe in a person, but you need to believe in God. You need to give your strength to a person. You have a very good husband, and he's a great match for you. You're like 2 peas in a pod. You suit each other, but you've drained each other. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Your question.
What do you think?
Sit down, please.
What is the most important knowledge you've gained in your life? And how did it affect your fate?
The strongest knowledge is the knowledge from God. I have received this knowledge many times. Not long ago, I had a conversation with an amazing Orthodox father, Ambrosius. I also received powerful knowledge from him. It's not exactly knowledge, it's more like a deep inner feeling that later transforms into knowledge. Knowledge is what brings a person to happiness, and deep knowledge means deep happiness. If a person experiences deep happiness from some interaction, it later turns into deep knowledge. And the deepest knowledge in my life I received from holy people, elevated people, pure people who constantly think about God, about the welfare of others in different spiritual traditions. A person has faith. It's like the song. There are so many good girls, so many tender names, but only one troubles me, taking away peace and sleep when I'm in love. This means faith. Faith means you have something beloved, but it doesn't mean everything else is worse. Knowledge in this world is limitless. There are many elevated people in different traditions. What suits you best, what you love the most, that is your own. But if someone thinks that their own is better, then they have a problem with their eyes. Because it's not just your own that can be the best.
Another question. How to jump off the wheel of a samsara?
We didn't jump onto it, so we can't jump off. We didn't give birth to ourselves, and we didn't kill ourselves. Even if someone thinks they've killed themselves, they will still suffer afterward for having done it. The wheel of samsara is a punishment for focusing too much on oneself. And this life we live is meant to distract us from ourselves and attract us to what brings true benefit and happiness. Then gradually, a person becomes free. The more selfless they become, the more they free themselves from the slavery of this existence. Take, for example, an animal. Why doesn't it have freedom of choice? There's only one reason: intense selfishness. And in a tree, life is so selfish that it can't think of anything. Its consciousness is completely shut down. This is called life in a deep sleep. Trees live like this. Humans have awakening consciousness. They are less selfish. Selfishness is a way of perceiving the world. We'll talk about this today in the lecture. A person's sense of self-esteem can be directed in different ways. And in general, any living being's sense of self-esteem.
I know a metaphor. The character of an apple tree is better than of a human.
Who said that?
Because it gives apples selflessly. And for that, its branches are cut.
It gives apples in its sleep. In sleep, can you be selfless or selfish in sleep?
And if you hit it with a stick, it gives even more apples.
That's a metaphor, just a metaphor. And it doesn't exactly give apples. Apples fall off it when it's hit with a stick. It gives apples in its sleep, but its character is really good. Much better than the character of, say, ivy or deadly nightshade. The character of a tree is determined by its fruits. If the fruits are edible, the character is good. If the fruits are poisonous, the character is poisonous. And this is confirmed by the growth of the tree. A poisonous tree destroys the life of other trees nearby, while a fruit tree, on the contrary, helps others live. In other words, you can determine the character of an apple tree, but the apple tree is asleep. It doesn't know itself. If you cut off its branch, more branches grow. If you cut off a piglet's leg, more legs don't grow because of the pain, because of the stress. The apple tree, on the contrary, awakens a little more when it's pruned, and it grows more. It wakes up a bit and grows more. So, this form of life is not selfless. It's just more in pure goodness, so to speak. More pure than, say, another tree that's poisonous. But comparing a tree to a human is meaningless. The comparison is good, though. It points to the fact that we should at least live like this. If someone hits you with a stick, give more fruit. I wouldn't want to be hit with a stick and give more fruit because of it.
Thank you.
You know, often when we take quotes from Buddhism, they can be interpreted a little incorrectly, because this knowledge is esoteric. They are hints. It's best to present the truth directly, not through hints. But hints are also good as they help people develop. There's Confucius and so on. They all speak in hints, but it's clear to those who understand. For example, I had problems with my wife. She walks slowly, I walk fast. We can't even walk together. And I started studying what kind of incompatibility this was. In Confucius, I found the compatibility between man and woman. In his section on compatibility, it says compatibility means fast and slow, slow and fast, hot and cold. This means compatibility. It means that you can't expect anything from life. If I'm hot, I need to open the window. My wife is cold, and she needs to close the window. It turns out to be very difficult, but this is compatibility, not incompatibility. That's how the world works, unfortunately. Nothing can be done. For example, you're a very poetic, sensitive person. This means you got a woman with a strong, decisive character. I understand your feelings, but I'm just telling you about compatibility, which seemed like incompatibility to you. We're still gathering, and that's why we're having such a lively conversation. Your question, man with glasses.
Good evening.
Please, sit down.
I'm a medical student, and I wanted to ask, how can I realize myself in my future profession in a way that benefits patients and prevents me from burning out professionally?
I'm not the one to advise you because of how I studied at medical school. I don't recommend it at all. I used to skip lectures and go to the clinic to treat people. Later, I was almost expelled from the institute for this. The dean had already gathered the documents. And at that time, I was treating the vice-rector's child. There were serious problems, and he found me. When the dean had already submitted the expulsion documents to the vice-rector for academic affairs, he arranged it so that while I was treating his son, he invited my dean to his home, and at this time, there was a lecture. Well, because I didn't attend lectures, he was trying to expel me. The dean says, "So, this is what you're doing during lectures?" And the vice-rector said, "Yes, he's busy saving my child's life. That's how it was, and he couldn't expel me." But this is not a good example. And if I am a bad example, what can I advise you? I just know one thing, that often students in medical school become so focused on studying the material that they don't understand why they're doing it. If you want to learn how to heal people, then think only about that. Everything else will fall into place.
Thank you.
I studied many things, like what the head of a bovine tapeworm looks like. None of this was necessary for me, yet I studied a lot of things, many different medicines, which nobody even uses nowadays. I passed exams on them, but what I really needed to learn was how to heal people. Speaking of my education, I learned more about healing people in India from those who love people and genuinely wanted to help them. From them, I inherited that attitude, and that's the most important thing. Everything else follows. It often happens that medical students focus on trying to get a good diploma and all the rest. Maybe that's necessary too, though my grades were far from excellent. But no one has ever asked for my diploma in life, so why go through so much suffering for it? I had a study group in my 4th year where we practiced alternative medicine. 6 professors from the medical institute attended it. I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you that I studied differently, not like everyone else. I don't know what advice to give you. The only thing I know for sure is that you're emotionally overwhelmed with your studies, and you're already sick of it all, that I can say with certainty. Because you're overloaded, you're disoriented, you don't know where to go next. Move in the direction of love. For example, if you love children, then it means pediatrics. Are you studying pediatrics? See, your path is already becoming clearer. If you love talking to people and healing through conversation, there you go, consultations, pediatrics, consultations, and so on. Move toward love, and you'll quickly find yourself. But if you're fixated on reading and memorizing as much as possible, that's an impossible way to live. You need to focus on what's most important and pass, just to survive in the institute. Once again, I'm just sharing my personal opinion. Maybe there's another way, but this is the path I chose for myself, and I don't regret it. Your question, I meant another young lady, but you can ask as well. You also need it. Just observe more closely with whom I'm speaking. But I'm not asking you anymore. Now the young lady will speak.
I want to thank you for what you do.
Thank you for coming. I have a question for you. Is it good to think that you don't need this life, or is it bad? What do you think? If a person thinks that way, will they be punished for it?
Of course.
Now ask your question.
My situation is rather ordinary. A year ago, my husband left me, and I was deeply hurt by this.
If a person leaves, do you really need to be so hurt that you think of leaving this life?
I was mostly worried about my children, I suppose. I have 2 sons. They struggled greatly with the situation as well. I know it's wrong, that you shouldn't think this way. I'm recovering now. We even had a church wedding, and now I even have another man.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Why do you think the new man hasn't eased your inner suffering?
I don't know, maybe I don't fully understand what's happening.
There's a kind of love called love faith. Remember, love faith is something very sacred, and it must always belong only to God. But if a person gives their love faith to another human being, it's an unforgivable mistake. Love faith makes a person proud and blind. That person didn't understand you because you believed in him. When a person puts their faith in another person, that person becomes blind, and faith cannot be changed in 5 minutes. That's why you can't properly evaluate the good person you've met now, because you've already given your faith to someone else. You should have given your faith to God. Faith is a precious thing, and it can stay with a person for years. Only if you truly learn to believe in God and give your faith to Him, will your heart find relief. If not, then understand this. People can feel that kind of burden for years. In a person there is something divine and something human. You saw the divine in him and confused it with God. The divine in a person doesn't come from the person. It is given by God. God gives divine masculine qualities to a man, feminine qualities to a woman, and we fall in love with these. But they don't belong to the person, they belong to God. If you can unravel this mystery, you see something in a person and don't understand what made you betray the melody of love. You can't understand how that's even possible. How could he do that? He's not exactly who you think he is. There's more to him that you don't see. You became blind in your relationship with him. You need to learn to see God himself and his reflection in people, and then there will be no blindness. When we start believing in a person, that person inevitably leaves us because he can't reciprocate that kind of faith. He loses himself in that belief. There are 2 options. Either you believe in him and he becomes like you, or he becomes proud. He fills himself with that belief and starts claiming it for himself. Most people become proud because it's impossible to give faith to a human being. It can only be given to God. You invested faith in him and he brought destruction into your life. You believed in the wrong person. That's where your mistake lies. Since you can't let go of that faith right now, your memory remains with it. Wherever a person's faith is, that's where their memory stays too. That's why you can't build healthy relationships with a worthy person now, because your memory is tied to where your faith still lies. The meaning of this lesson is that you need to learn to believe in God with all your might, in your tradition, in your faith, without changing anything. Focus on this now, and your heart will experience tremendous relief.
Thank you.
Your question.
Regarding the unactivated man. If a husband plays volleyball, works, is quite interested in spending time with us, but at the same time he plays computer games, is this normal?
The thing is, God should be present in the family. If God is not in the family, then the functions of relaxation in the family are disrupted, because when people are fixated on each other and their concerns, they cannot relax. Therefore, playing computer games means that the person gets exhausted before going to bed. That's why I'm explaining to you that people should pray every day before sleep and before meals, listen to spiritual music, and watch moral films in the evening. They should discuss it, love each other, ask for forgiveness, open their hearts to each other so that the heart relaxes at home, becomes calm and good, and the soul becomes light and cheerful. You don't have a relaxed atmosphere at home, so when he comes, you are tense in the evening, he feels tension. So to relieve his tension, he needs to do something. He plays computer games to distract himself somehow and fall asleep.
Should he come to faith in God on his own, or can he be somehow encouraged towards this?
You need to torment until he believes in God. Either he'll die or he'll believe. There's also a third option. Someone else will appear who doesn't torment him.
I like mine.
Then these options don't work. There's one more option, let me explain. If your man, namely a good person who genuinely treats you kindly, unlike before, I won't go into details, who is really sincere and can be trusted, jealousy doesn't arise because the person is honest. Such a man, despite his shortcomings, namely, he's stubborn. Also, he doesn't know how to relax. All the time he's into some incomprehensible hobbies. All of this together, both good and bad, needs to be accepted. And in order to accept, you need nature, which you lack. You need good people, which you lack. And you need God. You have a bit of God in your life lately because you've been working on it. So know that when you fill yourself with everything needed to accept your man into your heart, and when you accept him and say, I agree with everything, from that moment when you do this, Even if you don't say anything, he will absorb all the knowledge from your heart, because such a state of consciousness, when a person fully accepts another person, is called kindness. When you are genuinely kind to him, then he will accept the good from you. And as for how you behaved with him the evening before yesterday, with anger, it means that he will only accept the bad from you, so choose how you want to live. Have you understood all this? Be happy. And you want that too, right? Okay?
I have a question, also about an unactivated man, although he has many good qualities. He relaxes with alcohol, and he's been in this state throughout life because his father also drank a lot. Is something being done wrong? And does the concept of a karmic marriage exist? Is there such a thing? I already want to leave him.
Yes, in fact, you see, there's no such thing as a karmic marriage. There are just soulmates. If you haven't found your soulmate, it means you kick your spouse out and look for another one. If it doesn't work out again, you look for the next one, and so on. The main thing is to find your soulmate. Did you like this philosophy or not?
No.
No? Then it means there's another philosophy, which you might not like either. I'll have to tell you. Even if you don't believe me, I'll say it anyway, because in your past life you were in a male body and drank, and you're being punished for this. How does punishment manifest in a person's life? First, God warns the person through their parents that this is their fate. The father shows what you will get in life with men. The father shows the daughter first. Then the daughter receives her punishment for her past life. If she doesn't handle it, she gets further punishment from fate in the form of a child. If you don't handle it, the child will drink too. So you should know, alcoholism can only be overcome with the help of God and love. A man drinks because he lacks love, and love is lacking because you don't accept your fate. In your heart, there's indignation and protest against the person you live with. No matter how you talk about him, I see your heart, and I see what's in there. So know that if you accept him as your fate, not the person, but your fate, agree with God for the punishment. And this is only possible if you have the strength for it, and you don't have the strength now. Fill yourself from God, from good people, from nature. Fill yourself. Start living correctly. Switch the toggle to get filled with joy. Not to exhaust yourself, but to be filled with joy. Then in this case, you will be able to accept this person. You also need a serious spiritual life in your home. And then when God is manifested in your home, spiritual music is playing, conscience will flare up in his heart. And when you accept him and start treating him kindly, your love will melt his heart, and conscience will begin to live in his heart.
And approximately how much more time will this take? Because I'm very grateful for your lectures. I've been watching them for over a year, and they've given peace to my heart.
How much do you need for complete happiness specifically? $56.85. The time depends on how much you do. For example, an athlete comes to their coach and says, "How long will it take until I take first place? How much more time?" Well, however much you do, that's how long it will take. If you skate well, it will be faster. If poorly, slower. You're asking me about a period now. You're not in a bad period now. You can make it so he stops drinking right now. It's not about periods, but about punishment. Punishment is resolved through love for God and accepting one's fate. Your close one has nothing to do with it. The husband isn't the cause. It's your fate tormenting you. Believe me, that's how it works. It's crucial to understand that once you work through your fate, he will change too, although there is a chance that he will not. But by then, it won't matter to you anymore. I know a case where a woman completely prayed through her fate, but her husband told her, "I'll keep hitting you, whether you're good or bad. It makes no difference to me." Later, he got into an accident and died, and God gave her a kind husband who never hurt her. Why did that happen? Because she had worked through her fate. If someone refuses to follow the rules, they will be punished. It's your fate tormenting you, not your husband. And to be honest, women always tend to exaggerate. What's your exaggeration? It's that you've already started working through your fate, and your husband drinks less than he used to. But women always feel it's never enough, right? Don't worry, it's all fine. In time, he'll quit drinking altogether. He'll be fresh as a daisy. He's already a daisy, a bit of a pickled one, though. But he'll get better. He's a good man. Learn to see the good in him. Even if he's upset with you, there's a reason for it. Deep down, he's kind to you. You know, sometimes it seems you think things didn't work out here and they didn't work out there. I'm talking about your life and your thoughts, but at least he puts up with me. That means he's good. He's the only one who puts up with me. No one else ever did. So he's good? Well then, it's all settled. Everything will be fine. Okay, let's move on. Next question. About the lecture, right?
You mentioned that women recharge through social interaction, so it's good to invite guests. But I get stuck. It's really hard for me to invite people over. I just freeze.
Don't worry, it's just that you rest at home. You're very active socially and give away a lot of your energy to others. And women need to recover, just rest. And if you don't rest at home, you'll burn out. People are different. Some live isolated lives and need to invite people over to give them energy at home. There are such people, but you're different. You give to everyone all the time, so you need rest.